Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are going to talk about setting goals in different seasons. I'm going to talk about what I mean by seasons as it relates to goals. I'm going to give you an analogy that I'm still working on fleshing out but really excited about, and then I'm going to give you 5 tips, reminders, things to think about as you are setting goals in a season that might look different than one you've ever been in before. So let's start by talking about what I mean by seasons. Obviously, the definition of seasons, or the word, came from the seasons of the year. And all the definition is grouping like weather together. Now, depending on what part of the country you live in, most of the time your seasons don't actually feel that way. And so when we think about planning our life in seasons, what we mean by it when it relates to goals is like things together. There are similarities to a section of time, whether it is in your year or in your life, that will impact your goals. And this is happening to us all the time. Sometimes it happens to us naturally throughout the year. Different times of year are going to be different for us because of one reason or another, whether it's wedding season or the summer and your kids are out of school, or it's busy season at work, and that could impact your goals. It can also be different times of your life. There's a season of life that you're going through where something is going to take more of a priority than something else, where you're going to have less help or more help from other people in your life. There's so many different factors that can impact your goals in any given season. The other thing I want you to remember as it relates to seasons, and this is where I think the original definition can kind of mess with us a little bit, is that they all have to be the same set amount of time. It has to be the 3 months of the quarter, or 1 month, or this 1 year. There is no right or wrong length of any given season. One season could be really short and you're just powering through for 6 weeks. One season could be really long. It could be 18 months of something unique going on in your life. So as you are changing your goals, we all tend to change our goals every single year, some of us quarterly, every single month. And while that can work for some of us, and sometimes we just need the structure of the calendar year to force us basically to refresh and take a look at our goals, sometimes we need to refresh or take a look at our goals in other times of the year because it is a change in season. So right now, maybe you are entering a different season literally as we go into summer, although technically summer doesn't start till June 21st, but a lot of schools get out earlier. So whether you have kids or you work in the school system, you might be entering a different season. And deciding to change your goals because this season is different than the rest of the year, even though we're not at a new quarter, and heck, maybe you do it even if it's not at a new month, right? If your kids get out of school June 10th and you go from having your kids in school all day to having them at home with you all day, maybe you're a work at home mom and now your kids are home all day, have new goals that start June 10th. There is no rule that says you have to start them June 1st because it's the beginning of the month, June 21st because it's the start of summer, in the definition of summer, or even July 1st because it's the start of a new quarter. If your life changes seasons at a different date, you change your goals on that date as well. And I know that this can be hard depending on what goal setting system you're using. This is when something like the Moxie Life with that weekly change can be really beneficial. If you're like, Laken, I don't know what you're talking about, there are 2 main goal systems that I've talked about before, the Moxie Life Goal Planner and the Cultivate What Matters Power Sheets. I've done video reviews of both of them and a video comparing them side by side. And one of the key differences is that the Moxie Life has you check in with your goals every week. And that can be really beneficial if your seasons are changing in a way that doesn't flow with the regular months and quarters of the year. Now, one key thing I want you to remember as it relates to seasons and goals is that every season is going to look different in terms of the progress that you're making on your goals. There might be some seasons where you're able to make massive progress and get really far. And then there might be some seasons that you're gonna have to rein it in and you're not gonna make as much progress. And the analogy that I started working on, I heard this analogy as it relates to something else, not goals, on a podcast. And then during a live, I shared it as it relates to goals, and I wanted to include it in a video as well. And so the analogy is related to running a race. Now, I personally have never run more than a 5K. I'm not a runner. That is not my chosen method of movement or stress relief or any of those things. If you watched my 30th birthday video where I talked about the 30 things I want to do in my 30s, a Disney race is on there. That's mostly just because it's Disney World. But I have lots of family members who are runners, and I've been to lots of races and talked and learned a little bit about racing and running. And what I know from them is that when you're running a race, example we're gonna use is a marathon. So you're running 26.2 miles. I don't think I could ever run 26.2 miles, but you're running 26.2 miles. Your pace throughout the course of that marathon might be a 10-minute mile. It might be that you averaged 10 minutes per mile over the course of the entire race. That does not mean that you ran a 10-minute mile straight perfectly every mile for 26 miles. not how that works. Typically, you typically have miles that you are running faster than 10 minutes. That brings your average down. You are making a lot more progress, whether it's you're pushing yourself, or there's a hill that you're going down, or you have adrenaline at that point in the race, or you just ate something and it's giving you that boost. Then there are going to be miles that you are slower, that are going to be higher than your average and bring up your average. Like maybe you're going uphill, maybe you have to go to the bathroom. There are lots of reasons why you could slow down while you're running a race, and all of that averages out to your average pace. The same thing works with your goals over the course of really your life, but even let's slow it down and talk about a year, right? So let's say we are talking about the quarters, and those are your seasons. You're breaking it up just evenly throughout the quarters of the year. So you've got 4 seasons over the course of a calendar year. There might be some of those quarters that you are making massive progress, right? You are running really fast, and those are your like extra boosting, and whether it's you have extra support, right? Like you're running downhill, or there's some reason that you're able to make a lot more progress on your goals during those quarters. And then you likely have some quarters that are gonna be slower and that you're gonna make less progress because you have other things that are impacting that season of you working on goals. And then over the course of the year, they average out to your average level of progress. And there is no right or wrong in terms of how many you have that are fast or slow. Maybe you have an entire slow year, but most of the time you're gonna have seasons that you're making more progress, seasons that you're making less progress, and they average out over the course of your year and really over the course of your life. So still working on that analogy. I just think it's a really good reminder. You can think about it in terms of months as well, right? There's gonna be months that you're gonna make massive progress, and then there's gonna be months that you make no progress or very, very little progress, but that's how the race is run. There's going to be times that you're faster and going to be times that you're slower. And as long as you keep moving forward and you keep making progress, that is all you can ask of yourself. So let's move into the 5, I don't even know if I want to call them tips, things to remember, things to consider as you're thinking about your goals for any given season. And these things can be good to remember all of the time, but really things to remember when you are you're about to change into a different season. Number 1 is to scale back or scale up. Let's talk about scaling back first, because this one can be harder. Maybe you are maintaining a certain goal, a certain habit, doing 30 minutes of reading every single day, Monday through Friday, and you're really consistent at that. Now, maybe you're about to transition to a busy time at work, or maybe you're about to go back into the office. And so now you're going to have to cut your morning routine back in order to be in the office at a certain time. So now you're not going to be able to read 30 minutes every single morning before work. That was a season while you were working from home, and now you're in a season, which might be the rest of your career, that you are working in the office. And so you might have to scale back from 30 minutes a day in the morning to 10 minutes a day of morning so that you can accommodate your 20-minute commute. There is no right or wrong here. The struggle that we have with this is that scaling back to something we were doing before feels like failing. It feels like quitting. It feels not good. But that is something we have to remember, because we can't always maintain the same thing we were doing all of the time. The flip side of this could also be scaling up something that's more of a priority. Now, it could be just the opposite of what I talked about with scaling back, right? You have more time now. Maybe you got a new job that's permanently work from home, and now you have more time and you can scale up on certain goals. Maybe it's scaling up something that's more important and prioritizing that over other things, right? I am currently embracing this. We are in a season of life where we are in our last time here in New York City, and so I am scaling up, spending as much time as I can with my New York City friends and not trying to worry about other things going on in my life. Like, this is my priority right now, and I'm gonna scale this up in this season of my goals. Number 2 is to pick a different action step. This one, actually, the best example is the real seasons. There are some action steps that really lend themselves to the weather outside or the daylight, the hours of the daylight. Maybe you spent the winter working out inside and you were doing YouTube videos, or you were doing a program that was all inside. Now it's starting to get nice out and you want to spend time outside. Maybe it's switching that action step, even if it was working for you, into something outside. Or maybe you have to switch it to outside. Maybe now your kids are home. So now maybe instead of working out during your lunch hour in your living room, you take that lunch hour, you and the kids, everybody goes outside. You do your workout outside. You could do the same video or the same program and they play outside, right? Maybe because of the changing of the weather and the actual seasons, you're changing the action step. There are so many different options for action steps. In fact, last month I did a whole series of action step ideas for 4 different goal categories. There's so many ways to achieve a goal. When a season in your life changes, even if that goal is still important to you, you could still make progress on that goal by picking a different action step that fits better within that season. Number 3 is to put something on pause. And this is similar to scaling back in the sense that it feels like failing or it feels like quitting, But sometimes we just have to press pause on certain goals because this is not the right season to be working on them. Again, going back to our hill analogy, maybe you're going uphill or downhill, whatever that looks like for you in terms of support and resources, that you might have to press pause on a goal until you are able to focus on it a little bit more. There are only so many hours in a day. You only have so much energy. And I actually have a video coming soon talking all about resources as it pertains to goals. And so there might be a time that you just have to put a goal on pause. Again, it does not mean that you are quitting or failing if it is due to the fact that you are in a completely different season. Now, sometimes this happens naturally and we don't even realize it. So one of the sessions that I do with my one-on-one coaching clients is all about quitting. And during that session, I ask them for an example of a goal that they've quit in the past. Sometimes when they have quit a goal, I'm putting that in quotation marks, it's because their season shifted and they did quit, but they quit like not on purpose because of the shift in season. And so in their mind, it became negative, it became failure, it became bad, as opposed to if you just had a shift in seasons, you can opt for that not to be the goal. Sometimes when you're in that season, I know that it can be really, really hard to take a step back and look at it and be like, oh, I need to let go of this because I'm changing in seasons, right? Going back to the office, maybe it's having a baby, getting married, moving, whatever it is. Sometimes when you're in it, it's too much and you can't take that step back. But if you find yourself being hard on yourself for quitting a goal, take a look and see, did I have a shift in seasons of my life that impacted that quitting? And if the answer is yes, give yourself permission, like it's okay, I'm just putting it on pause for now. Write it down so you don't forget that that goal is something that you want to work on. That was also a tip I gave last month during the series, is to always have a place for goal ideas so you don't forget that goal and come back to it when the season makes sense. Number 4 is to go all in on one goal. Sometimes there are seasons where it just makes sense to focus in on one goal. Going back to your kids being home for the summer, maybe you let go of pretty much every goal except spending time with your kids and enjoying that summer that you have with them. Maybe they're at super fun ages and you want to spend every moment and really focus on them. Now, going all in on one goal doesn't mean that you forget all of your other goals and only focus on one. Now, let me take that back. It can mean that. If you have something that's really, really important, and there is this season, I had someone who's a member of the Patreon community who was studying for a certification for her job. That was her one goal, and she let all of her other goals go. Going all in on one goal doesn't have to mean that you let all of the goals go. It could mean that you're spending 70 to 80% of your time, 90% of your time on one goal, and then the rest of your time on your other goals and making really small progress. And maybe this is, again, because of the weather or because of the support that you have or the lack of support that you have. There could be some reason where it makes sense for you to go all in on one goal. And that could be really hard to mentally wrap your brain around, to be like, I'm gonna make really little progress on everything else and only focus on this one area of life. That can be really tough because you feel like you're giving up on those other goals. I feel like that's what this all comes down to, is when you make decisions for your goals based on the different seasons, it can sometimes feel like failure in some way, shape, or form. And I'm here to remind you that it is not failure. It is making a logical decision based on what is going on right now in your life, and that changes on a very regular basis. Which leads me perfectly into my 5th and final thing, which is to remember that it's only temporary. Even if it's a really long season, every season is only temporary and it will change again. Our lives are constantly in a state of change. So if you are in a season of life, and maybe it's frustrating, maybe it's a struggling season for you right now, know that it is only temporary. So if you're deciding any of the things we've talked about, right? Scale up, scale back, put something on pause, going all in on one goal, it is temporary. It is something that you're gonna do for a time period. And maybe that time period is something you know, right? Like our community member focusing on that certification, she knew when it was gonna be over. She knew when that test was gonna be. Or maybe it's something that you don't know. You don't know when that time period is going to end, but I promise you, it is. It's going to end. Every season is temporary, whether it's short or long or anything in between. So I hope that you found this video helpful, reminding you that things change and we are all in different seasons of life, and not putting too much pressure on yourself in any one given season, but also leaning into what you can lean into, whatever season you're in. If this is something you still feel like you struggle with, come join us in the Patreon community. Every month when we refresh our goals, we talk about what else do we have going on? What are our commitments? What are our resources? And how can we take that information to then set ourselves up for success as it relates to goals in the next month? I will leave all of the information linked down below. We have our quarterly goal refresh session coming up in just a few weeks. So if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. If you watched my 30 and blah, 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 that's not the name of that video. The same things works, same things. You're gonna be so sick of me touching my hair. Our lives that you still struggle with. If this is something you struggle with, I will leave, blah, blah, blah.